Ah. Well, I must be returning to Donwell, I suppose.
Oh, no, please, Mr. Knightley, do not leave us just yet. Father and I must spend all our days alone together now, so we shall be more than ever grateful for your company.
Emma, my dear, the door. The door, my dear, if you'll be so good. There's a most dreadful draught round my feet.
I say Mr. Knightley will be more than ever welcome, Papa, now that we are to spend our days alone together, without Miss Taylor. Mrs. Weston, as I suppose I should now call her.
Poor Miss Taylor, poor Miss Taylor. What a pity it was that Mr. Weston ever set eyes on her. Yes, it is a sad business indeed.
Oh, come, Weston's an excellent fellow. He's been a widower too long. He'll make her the admirable husband that she deserves. But you and Emma will lose housekeeper, governess, companion, and friend all at one stroke. It's poor Mr. and Miss Woodhouse, in my opinion.
Especially when one of them is such a fanciful, troublesome creature, Mr. Knightley. Come, speak your mind honestly, sir.
That's very true, my dear. I'm afraid I am very troublesome and fanciful these days.
Oh, dearest Papa, as though we could possibly mean you. No, Mr. Knightley was merely pursuing his self-appointed task of putting me in my place and keeping me well aware of my faults, were you not, sir?
I said nothing. It was you.
To have taken upon yourself, I grant you. But never mind. We understand each other, do we not? Have another piece of wedding cake. It really is delicious.
No, thank you.
Emma, my dear good child, whatever are you doing? There will be no Miss Taylor to look after you now, don't forget, if you become unwell.
Oh, Father, when have you known me have one day's indisposition since I was a child? I have an extremely robust constitution. Have I not, Mr. Knightley?
I must say I think you have, Emma.
Dear Emma bears everything so well. But she will miss poor Miss Taylor more than she imagines.
It's quite impossible that she should not. But she knows how much this marriage is to Miss Taylor's advantage. It really is a most satisfactory thing for all concerned, I should consider.
Thank you, Mr. Knightley. I take that as a great compliment coming from you, because I flatter myself that I was chiefly responsible for the match.
Oh, come now, Emma, really?
Oh, yes. Ever since the day that Miss Taylor and I first met Mr. Weston in Broadway Lane, and because it began to mizzle, he darted into Farmer Mitchell's and brought us 2 umbrellas. From that very moment, I planned the match. Oh. You may smile, Mr. Knightley, but it's the truth.
My dear, I wish you would not make matches, for they are most troublesome and wretched affairs.
Oh, I promise to make none for myself, Papa, but I do not promise to restrain myself on behalf of others, because it's the greatest amusement in the world. And after such a success...
Success? What do you mean by success?
But do you not call it a success, then? That 2 such admirable and well-suited people should come together?
Yes, but success, I suppose, is some kind of endeavour. Am I to understand that you have been labouring these past 4 years to bring this match about? It's a fine occupation for a young lady, I must say.
Mr. Knightley daily loves to chide me as though I was still in the nursery, do you not, sir?
Indeed, I do not.
Oh, yes, you do. But I would have you know that I am no longer of an age to be made to stand in the corner for talking too much. Happily, for I should no doubt be there a great deal, I'm afraid.
You merely said to yourself one day how delightful it would be were Mr. Weston to marry Miss Taylor, and as it happened, he did. Now, what's there to be proud of in that? You merely made a lucky guess.
I consider that man's behaviour most odious and hurtful.
I fancy they both aimed at wounding more than poor Harriet.
Most probably.
Emma, why have they become your enemies? Confess that at one time you did think that he and Harriet would have made a good match.
I did, most mistakenly, as I now see, and they cannot forgive me for it.
Well, I shall not scold you. I shall leave you to your reflections.
Can you trust me to such flatterers? Does my vain spirit ever tell me I am wrong?
Not your vain spirit, perhaps, but your serious one. If the first one leads you wrong, I'm sure the other tells you.
I must confess that I was most mistaken in my judgment of Mr. Elton. There is a littleness in him which you saw and I did not. And I fully convinced myself of his being in love with Harriet. I realized I was sadly wrong.
And in return for your acknowledging so much, let me do you the justice to say that you would have chosen for him better than he has for himself.
You really think so?
Harriet Smith has many excellent qualities, which Mrs. Elton is totally without.
Well, I am very glad to hear you say that.
And let me admit my own mistake. I underestimated her. She is an unpretending, artless, sweet-tempered girl, infinitely to be preferred by any man of good sense to a woman like Mrs. Elton.
She is a dear, sweet creature and worth 100 Mrs. Eltons.
And I find her...
You should set these young people an example. Everyone's lazy tonight. Everyone's half asleep.
Gentlemen,
Poor Mr. Weston, we really must bestir ourselves.
To whom are you engaged for this one?
To you, if you will ask me.
Will you?
I think we are not quite so much brother and sister as to make it at all improper.
Brother and sister? I should think not indeed.
Mr. Knight, Miss Woodhouse.
Oh, goodness, what a morning! I met Miss Bates in Ford's and had her describing Jane's gown last night for half an hour at least. And another half an hour describing what was to be had at the supper table. Oh, has anybody called? Harriet, my love, are you feeling unwell?
No, Mr. Knightley, if you'd be so kind.
Allow me, Miss Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr.
Come along, Miss Bates. Let me give you a hand.
Oh, how kind.
There we
Oh,
are.
stiff.
Now, then, if you take this,
Thank you.
I'll bring the rug.
Right.
Well, now, I do hope you've enjoyed your day.
Oh, yes, most enjoyed.
Mr. Knightley,
Yes, so very good.
you and I have scarcely spoke the whole afternoon.
Emma, how could you?
What do you mean?
Treat poor Miss Bates in such a cruel manner.
Oh, Mr. Knightley, I was only jesting. Besides, I do not suppose she fully appreciated my meaning.
I can assure you she did, and she was very much hurt by it.
Mr. Knightley, she is a dear old creature in many ways, but really you must admit that in her what is good and what is ridiculous are very finely blended.
Oh, I admit it. And were her circumstances the same as your own, I should say nothing of it. But think how far this is from being so. She is poor. She has sunk from those comforts that she was born to, and will doubtless sink further. She should excite your compassion, not your ridicule. You, whom she has known since a child, to laugh at her and humble her before the whole company in such a cruel manner.
But Mr. Knightley...
Emma, that you of all people should allow the flattery of a moment to cloud your judgment so. It distresses me beyond belief.
I've collected so many flowers and grasses. Look, Miss Woodhouse. Oh, Miss Woodhouse.